Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of this week. But this week, we can't really completely dive into until we remind ourselves what was happening last week, because on Sunday, right before we head into Monday on the 19th, we have the Mars Saturn conjunction, and that is going to be kind of separating, not very quickly, as we move through this week. So it's important to kind of understand that astrology because on Monday, we have that Mercury conjunct Mars. So as we move through, we're still dissipating that energy. We're still functioning under a Mars Saturn conjunction. So just know that the undercurrent of the stuff that's happening is pretty chaotic. And this intense kind of war between forward motion, restriction, everything being in Aries, Neptune's adjacency, Mercury being conjuncted. So a lot of people are going to be continuing to kind of pop off this week verbally. People kind of showing their behinds because they aren't being thoughtful about what they say. A lot of people taking off the mask for sure this week, especially because this week, drum roll, we get Uranus moving into Gemini for the final time. So this is another kind of, you're like, Abigail, they're all big weeks. Yes, that is the astrology of 2026. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. So just know that we're carrying this energy. It doesn't really fully dissipate until around like the first week of May. So just know that's where we're at. And also this week we move into Taurus season. So we do get a shift from that kind of full stellium functioning in Aries to a bit of a gentler vibe. So that is at least mitigating some of this. But it does happen the same day that we have Reggie. Sorry, my dog gets very talkative whenever I start recording because he's an attention hoe. Anyways, so the Mercury Mars conjunction is going to be marked with volatility. It's also going to see a lot of stuff. Mercury rules merchants and rules commerce. And so we're going to be seeing a lot of continuation of the conversation around the economic issues we are currently facing, to say the least. We're also going to see more and more people pulling away from the people who have instigated this situation as the planets separate from each other. So it'll feel good to see some people finally in power finally doing something, but they're only doing something because they're starting to hurt financially. Because they're not going to do it because they're good humans. Unfortunately, especially with this Mars Saturn stuff, it's people aren't doing stuff, not everyone, of course, but in the public eye, people aren't generally doing stuff because they care. They're doing stuff because they're being affected and they don't like it. So just be aware that people are going to be coming out with crazy takes. You're going to see conspiracy theories being proven as actually real theories, which has really been a theme of Saturn and Aries and Pluto and Aquarius, being like, oh, you thought that was an extreme take? It was mild, to say the least. So just know that that is the energy of this week. We do have a lot of Uranian things happening. So that adds to kind of like the oversized energetic burden. Uranus is about change, it's about transformation, it's about innovation specifically. So I do think if you were into sciencey stuff, we might see some really interesting research and like breakthroughs unfolding. That is one of the bright sides of Uranus and Gemini is like a lot of stuff is discovered and kind of brought to light new ways of doing things, multiple options, different choices. So that's going to start to unfold because we do get that ingress. But first, on Monday, the crazy Mars Mercury conjunction causing all the chaos and people popping off. Also, this means you might want to kind of watch your words if you want to keep some relationships intact. I will say that a lot of this energy is also to purge. Like the universe is like, do you want to keep that relationship? It's about speaking your mind. Maybe, you know, pull your punches a little bit if you really care and love someone. But if you are standing up for yourself, let it rip and let the chips fall where they are. That's at least my advice. Um, but then we go from Monday to Friday. And so while obviously this astrology is like happening, we don't have any like direct impact, which is nice. One second. Speaking of direct impact, I'm always paranoid this is going to turn off because there's no way to tell how full the battery is. Um, welcome to my life. I play roulette with my microphones. But on Friday, we get the final Venus Uranus conjunction. This is the final planetary conjunction of Uranus and Taurus. We will not be back here until like 84 years. So if you're alive right now, there's unless something crazy changes, you will not see the next Venus Uranus conjunction in Taurus. So this is a really big moment. It's a big moment for the house where Taurus sits. So check your chart for sure to see where this is happening. It is about relationships. I think because it is at 29 degrees of Taurus, it's also a look back of the last 7 years and what has shifted relationally, what has shifted when it comes to our survival, because that is kind of the topic of Taurus when we kind of break it down into like the bare parts. Taurus is a very survival heavy sign. It's how we make it through early childhood sometimes. Obviously, there's more to Taurus than that, but if you like break it down to what happens when a Taurus or that energy is kind of flatlined, survival is what is talked what is most talked about. Um, so yeah, how we've survived relationships, how we've existed through certain dynamics. I will say a lot of the lessons we've learned in Taurus, we're not going to do again because it's a fixed sign. It's like, yeah, so there's celebration in here. We don't have to. We're not doomed to repeat our mistakes, to continue this cycle. But it is tinged with a little bit of like, I kind of wish it had turned out differently. That's kind of how Uranus works, where it's like, well, that's not the way I would have picked for my life to have gone, but it's not necessarily bad. It's just not the smoothest path and requires a pretty strong level of flexibility, even in Taurus. This is also about ecological things and ecocide. The damage that has been done to the earth in the last 7 years has been a lot more than the past even 50 years. And so this final moment, I think, is going to, like I said, about science. I think we might be seeing some reports about the earth being way worse off than we thought and the damage being a lot quicker. And if we don't see it now, we will see it within like a like journalistic cycle, so like 6 months, um, which I think is kind of like how long it can take something to come through. I may have just channeled that. I don't know, but we'll see. Get ready, guys. Mark down 6 months, and we'll find out if I'm right. But that very same day, because Venus moves fairly quickly, and it is at the final degree of Uranus, of Taurus, it moves into Gemini. And so we get Venus into Gemini. And while Venus is domicile and very happy and delighted in Taurus, I do like a Venus Gemini energy. It is playful, it is fun, it's flirtatious. So there is, thankfully, in all of this, a bit of lightness, a bit of silly, goofy. You're also going to see a lot of people doing like tongue in cheek humor. You're also going to see a lot more people flirting online, in person. Um, I think the hard part with Venus is Gemini is you can never really tell if they're like flirting, or if this is just how they are with everyone. So be aware, especially if you're talking to a Venus in Gemini. You might want to clarify. Are we interested, or is this how we just treat everyone? Because mixed signals. But on kind of like a personal level, if it's not a natal placement, it does kind of heighten the playfulness and the fun and exploration around love, and um, also might take the edge off for my single folks a little bit. Not as in like you're not still single and probably really wanting to find a partner, but there's less desperation around it. You might feel more like, what will be. And also, Venus and Gemini is not a bad time to have like a little meet cute. So just a little tidbit in there. But relationally, if you're in a relationship or not in a relationship, there's just more play in relationships in general. This can be romantic, this can be intimate, physical relationships, wink wink. Because I don't know if I can really do a good literal wink. Let's do this. Intimate relationships. Yeah, it's painful. We're not doing that again. Anyways, sorry guys. I'm feeling a little chaotic today. Anyways, there is playfulness. This is a great time if you have children to reconnect with them through play. It's a great time if you don't and you're just an adult. Or if you do and you're just an adult, to engage in play, engage in like lighthearted connection, meeting people where they're at, meeting people in like interest places, going to classes, doing things that are fun and stimulating. It's always a good idea with Venus and Gemini. And I think it's really sweet because we get to experience that in the spring this year. It doesn't always happen that way. And so it's a nice fun, playful springtime. Reminds me of, I think it's in Bambi where they call it Twitter pated. Feels very Twitter pated energy of like everyone being a bit high on life. And I think we could all use that considering the current astrology. Then moving on to Saturday, yeah, we have Uranus officially going into Gemini, following right on the heels of Venus. Of course, they will not connect again because Uranus moves way too slow until next year when Venus then has its conjunction with Gemini, with Uranus and Gemini. Like I said, folks, chaos today. Then we do get the Sun Pluto square on that very same day. This is going to be heavy. Pluto squares are always heavy, especially with planets like the sun and the personal planets. I always find that it's some kind of secret coming out, whether it with the sun is more of like things being brought to light in a really big way, people whose egos have gotten out of control, biting the dust. Um, Also, it often comes with like a buildup of like consequences if someone hasn't, and you can apply this as you will to current events. If someone has not had consequences, this could be real consequences coming in for someone who is constantly kind of bypassing the Pluto cycle of death and responsibility. That Sun square can sometimes bring that. So we might actually see consequences. Do I think they're going to be consequences meted out by the systems that we live in? No, it'll be consequences either of nature or of circumstance. It's not going to be people doing the right thing. It's going to be things falling on people's heads because they've cut the tree the wrong way and it collapses on top of them. In our personal lives, this is very much seeing people for who they are, like having an epiphany, like a painful epiphany about a family cycle or a system that you have functioned under, but very much seeing people for who they are under difficult circumstances. Pluto Sun oppositions are more of like, oh, the sun is now shining upon all of these things, and now we see them. The Pluto Sun squares are very much like, and pressure was applied, and stuff popped out like a nasty pimple, and now we all get to see it and have to clean up. Um, so it is going to be Saturday's going to be crazy chaotic because we'll have the Uranus ingress into Gemini and the Sun square, and that's a lot of energy. So be aware, be gentle on yourself, especially since the Mars Saturn conjunction is still separating. There is going to be a level of violence with all of these ingresses, even if there's not like ruled by um necessarily ruled by those things. There's just going to be other stuff happening that's going to continue to be this kind of harsh rubbing against each other that Mars and Saturn have been doing, bringing things to the surface. The demand for action, but not really knowing how to regulate that action is a big thing. You know, a lot of this energy is go, go, go energy, and we will be hauled up short by these squares. So don't run too far too fast, or your chain will get yanked. Sunday we have Mercury squared Jupiter. Jupiter has finally moved several degrees from 15 degrees, where it literally sat for forever. So there is an element of progress. But when we have the Mercury square, these are consequences for bets we've made. These are, and not necessarily bad, kind of just like, well, you made this choice, and so that happened. So if you've been making good choices, you might actually see not full unbridled abundance, but you might see like some progress with some need for adjustment. If you haven't been doing the work, this is like very much like, oh, so you haven't been participating, and Mercury wants to know where the money you've been making is, and Jupiter wants to know why you haven't been taking advantage of the things they've been giving you. So it's kind of like a tally up of where things are. Um, it can feel a bit nitpicky and aggressive, especially in a cardinal placement of like someone kind of calling you out and feeling sensy about it, sensitive. Um, but don't take it personally if you can. You know, it does feel for just a lot of the collective, especially those who have been doing the work, those who have been, sorting through the rough friendships, advocating for themselves, functioning under a healthy relationship dynamic, or at least trying. This energy has the capacity of really helping you readjust and realign so that you can move forward into better things. Um, doesn't mean it feels easy or smooth, but it does mean like this doesn't have to be all bad. Um, the square with Mercury is kind of a reminder, which feels like a continuation of the new moon in Aries and the Saturn conjunction with Mars, with that Mercury participated in. Kind of a reminder that while Jupiter is luck, um, luck finds us on the road. And if you're not on the road, it's not going to find you. So if you're not on the road, this is a big nudge to get your ass on the road. And if you are on the road, I think luck might find you in a really odd and specific way. Is it a way you've been asking for? No, it's a square, probably not. But when I see Jupiter squares, it's very much a kind of like, have you been calling luck in? Have you been participating in life and in anticipation of good things happening? And if you haven't, then how are those things going to happen? And if you have, they're like, well, push a little further, see how much further you can go, try a little harder. It can be frustrating, especially if you've been trying harder, but there is an element going into next week of things slowly but surely starting to break. And looking kind of at next week, we do have some tough moments, but there's also some release, which I think is where we're headed, for sure. And then we have the Venus sextile Neptune, which I think is like the first positive interaction we've had with Neptune. And not to say that the conjunctions aren't positive, they're just a lot. But with Venus sextile Neptune, we're going to get more information about the transit of, every time we have any type of planetary interaction in a new big transit, we get more information about said transit, especially with the great outer planets where we only get to experience them once in a lifetime. And even then, maybe not if you're born at a certain time. Um, but there's some kind of dialogue about the impossibility of our dreams and us being like, I have some tricks up my sleeve. I don't believe that it's all impossible and hard and difficult. And while it might feel like it is, I think there's a way that I can get something that I want, that I can manifest these dreams. It's also kind of pulling a bit of delusion into your relationship. This can lead to things like limerence if you're not careful, and like maybe on this day we like over fantasize about someone we don't really know or we indulge a little bit in a parasocial relationship online. But I think it also can be a moment where we say, you know what, anything is possible, and we're going to need that mentality to get through 2026 whether we like it or not. And so, there is that kind of pushback from Aries and that creativity of Gemini of being like, it's almost like two kids kind of like sitting in a park a bit bored and being like, what if we like started a business? What if we sold stuff or made stuff or like created something and became famous and rich? And what if you did? What if you did? What if you did take a chance on something? Because like at some point, there's not a whole lot to lose if they continue to put us under the pressure they're putting us under. And so I would encourage you, this is, especially Sunday is a day to redirect. It's a day to reconsider. It's a day to like pull your dreams and desires and the unknown that you connect with back into focus. So do that. Participate this week. Obviously, you might need to take a break on Saturday, but I do think with Mercury square Jupiter and Venus sextile Neptune, immediately following, there's an element of clarity mixed with the delusion in kind of a comical way that might allow us to access some really interesting and creative ideas that might have some real legs by the 6 month mark. So don't underestimate any of your nutso ideas at this point. They might actually be really good. And as always with like Neptunian things, write stuff down because you will forget. The Neptune just, the thought passes and goes into the ether and the cosmos. So definitely put it down if you want to remember it. Anyways, my loves, that's this week. It's a little bit of everything. It's a bit of chaos, a bit of good stuff, a bit of release, Very Gemini in nature. It's like a little charcuterie board of all of the possibilities we could have. Um, as far as the next week we're moving into, it is fairly intense, but it feels like we're getting some function. Whereas this week is very much an ideas week. Next week is the week where we kind of can get to work on some things. So take your time. Don't rush yourself. Anyways, my loves, I will see you later. Oh, also, I will be releasing in the shorts on YouTube and over on IG, I will be releasing the tarot energy readings for each zodiac sign for Taurus season. And I will also be releasing probably Sunday. Yeah, probably Sunday. I will be releasing the Taurus season video where I just kind of go over the major transits and events that we'll be experiencing so you kind of get an idea of what the astrology looks like for that month. Also, now in my schedule, Tuesdays I do a candle wax reading, so divination reading on different topics. If you have a topic you want, go into the comment sections of those videos and ask me to do them because I will definitely take your ideas and recreate them for you. I will recreate, use them, I don't know. And then on Thursdays now, I am releasing a tarot pick a pile or a tarot divination reading on a different topic. Once again, you can pop into my comments or my DMs and ask for a specific kind of reading, and I will do my best to accommodate you. Anyways, my loves, I will see you all later. Have a blessed week.